Welcome to another episode of the mini harp lessons on Facebook and Instagram. Let me know if you can hear me, if you can see me, and let me know how are you today. For those of you who are here first time, my name is Susanna and I'm a harpist and harp teacher. And every Friday at 11 a.m. I'm giving a mini lesson through Facebook Live and Facebook and on Instagram. I'll just go and check the. I've got this little thing which is supposed to record the live and give you better sound quality afterwards, and it just stopped. So just let me see how we're doing with that. It should be okay now, but just a second. Oh, I think I know what happened. It's connected to a battery source which has disconnected itself. So just a brief technical issue which I need to sort out. Let me know in the meantime if you can hear me and see me. And in a second I'll be talking and answering some questions that I've received from you last week. Let me see what happened here with all the cables. Maybe it will be, yeah, it might be that just the cable. Okay, maybe that will work. Let me check that again. Just one more minute. Sorry about this. Normally we get internet cutting off or something in the middle of the live, and it's quite rare that we've got something happening right at the very beginning. Okay, hope this will go on, and if internet for some reason goes down today, just try to refresh the page on Facebook, because I might need to start another live as it happened in the past, and on Instagram just refresh your stories, and I'll try to do the best I can to come back and finish what I've got to say today. So last week we were talking about the issue of placing two fingers and how to put them on, when to put them on, how to decide which one is coming on the string and which one is going. Something which I think very often beginners and also self-taught players find very confusing, because it's something which I think it's very difficult to describe in a book or a harp method. Let me know if you are a self-taught harpist, and if you were watching last week's live, how did you like the exercises and the PDF? Did you find it helpful? Did you find that there was too much or too little over the course of a week? Today, when you click the link, you will be able to download another PDF with the three-finger exercises and also with links to the book that I will be recommending you that we are going to be using. And some of those exercises are actually ones that we are going to go further from today. So it will be really good if you have a look at what they are and how we were working on those. Before I get to showing you the exercises and the pieces, I had a question after the last week's live about the issue of raising or lifting the arms after you have played the sound, after you come off of the strings. And correct me if I'm wrong, I hope that this is what you meant, that after you played the chord, then there is that movement coming after playing, sort of something like that. I hope that this is what the question was about, and I thought I'd just share you something that I observe with students who are concerned about this. So I think that gesture doesn't have a direct relationship to improving your sound, because that person said, how can I do that movement to enhance the sound in the best possible way and also to look good while I'm doing that? And I think that actually what enhances the sound most is the articulation, so the fact that you press on the string before you play, and then that you close your finger in the middle, inside the palm of your hand. I think that's something which is the very, very base of good sound and of making things sound good on the harp. And with beginners, very often I see that there might not be enough strength in the finger just yet when you start playing the harp, and sometimes I see people compensating for the lack of strength here by pulling their hand away from the harp. And I think it's not a good thing to do at the beginning, and I would encourage you, even if the sound seems to you very small when you start playing the harp, even if you can't do more than that, say this, then still try exercising, doing those exercises which we will show you today will be really useful because they develop the strength of your fingers. So try to just pull on the string a little bit more, squeeze it between the fingers and then let go, because that's what will give you better sound than pulling with the arm. I think pulling with the arm might mean that there is not enough squeezing here on the string and the sound will be very, I don't know how to call it. I think of it as an empty sound and sometimes very superficial sound when you just glide off the string and you compensate with the arm movement. I suppose when you're starting to play the harp, you watch quite a lot of videos of other harpists, more advanced harpists performing, and in the videos of professional harpists playing soloists, you can very often see that they do big gestures like that. And I think some people think that this is necessary condition when you play the harp. So I think when you have played the harp for 10, 15, 20, 30 years, you develop those gestures as a sort of another mean of communicating with the audience, about showing what you mean. They are not as much part of the playing anymore. They are something which gives the side of your artistic personality and so on. So I don't think it's really necessary to think of all that when you're starting to play the harp. I think what makes you look good when you play the harp as a student, as a beginner, I think even for this soloist, what makes you look good is the fact that you know what you're playing, that you've practiced, that you're confident about what you're playing, and you can think about the main thought which is behind the piece. And the gesture is something which comes from all that, but it shouldn't be the first thing that you're concerned about. When I'm starting to teach people play the harp, I usually start with showing them, just turn the phone a little bit so everyone can see. I hope you will be able to see now. So I'm starting with just asking them to play with one finger, index finger, and then come off, which might encourage people to start trying to pull with their arm. But that's why we move very quickly to the exercise that I was showing you last week, the 2-finger exercises, where you're holding on with the second finger and the thumb, and you play just one of them, because then you have to really press on the string with either finger, while you can't really do that excessive arm movement. So I recommend you do those. It's a great workout for the fingers, because you're just strengthening them gently as you play. And this is something which we'll do today with the 3 fingers. Let me know if that answers your question. I'll just have a look in my notes to see if there was anything that I wanted to say. Yeah, I think it's about that movement. It's just allowing it to happen. It's not trying to do something extra with your arms. It's just a consequence of what you have played here. It's just allowing your hand to relax after playing, and then naturally the hand will lift and close and go away, but you don't need to help it excessively. You might as well get a really nice sound by just doing that, right? If anyone else has any questions about it, just put them in the comments here, and I'll reply either now, if you manage to ask them before the end of this live, or later today, or next week, if there are lots of good questions. Okay, and now let's move on to the topic of today, which is placing 3 fingers, and we're going to start off with 3-finger exercises from the same book that we used last week, First Harp Book by Betty Parrett. They are really good exercises, but we will give them a little bit of a twist today. So stay tuned. I will show you what you can do to make them even more varied. So the first exercise. Let me just open the file so I'm telling you exactly what you will see in the book. The first exercise asks you to hold your thumb on E string, hold your 3rd finger on C string, and start with plucking the C string while holding on with the thumb. The important thing here when we're adding the 3rd finger is to, I'll just move it an octave higher so it can be seen also on my phone. So the important thing when you're holding on the strings, just 3rd finger and the thumb, is that your 2nd finger doesn't do that, right? So your 2nd finger stays low. You can just wiggle it a tiny bit to make sure that it's relaxed along with other fingers, and have 2, 3, 4 and little finger pointing to the floor. And then you can close all the fingers as you play. That was first bar. Then second bar you play the thumb, 2nd finger still stays low. And then we're adding second finger, so now you need to really be careful that it doesn't go anywhere there, because that will prevent your thumb from making the nice move. And then you carry on playing with third finger and the thumb. And now how can we tweak those exercises to make them even more useful and also a bit more interesting? What I do, when we were starting, we were having the fingers in steps, 3 to 1 on CD, neighboring strings. What you can do is start, sorry, just need to move a bit, so you can put them on the shape of the arpeggio, root position arpeggio, which means that you're skipping one string between each finger. So your third finger is on C, second on E, thumb on G, and you can do exactly the same exercise first with just third finger holding on, then the thumb, and then you can do third with second holding on and the thumb. Then you can start changing the shapes, going third and thumb on A, which is the first inversion, and then move your thumb to F. That will be your third inversion. Second inversion, of course. And if you feel like it, you can also start playing with the second finger. That's also another exercise which will be very useful. So that's how you can make it even more interesting and take a bit longer to give a bit more workout to your fingers. Then you would do the same thing with your left hand. And when we move to the exercise number 2, you can first do the exercise as it is in the book. Here it's really important that you place all 3 fingers at once, that 3 fingers land at the same time to start with. So don't let your third finger be on and start playing while you're putting the thumb and second on. They need to all start at the same time. And same when going down. They all start at the same time. Lots of nice space between thumb and second finger. Bending the thumb, closing the other fingers, squeezing the strings before you play. And again, you can do the same thing. Put them on the shape of arpeggio, C, E, G, and then down. And then you can move to the first inversion, which means thumb moving up to A. Then you will get that. And then you can get second finger moving to F to have all the possible shapes of arpeggio, 3-finger arpeggio covered. So these were the exercises, and in the PDF plan that you can download, I recommend that you're doing that for all 7 days of practicing 3-finger placing, just to develop the strength in your thumb, in your fingers, to refresh every day thinking about this position of having your thumb quite high and your second and third quite low, and getting that right into the habit. Then, day 2, we will move on to one of the pieces which involves 3 fingers, and for that I've picked the piece which is called Somersaults from Bonnie Goodrich book, A Bouquet for Young Harpists. And maybe before I talk about this piece, I will play it to you and you will hear what it sounds like. Somersaults by Bonnie Goodrich. Piece, and as you can see, it's 3 fingers all the time in that piece, all of them going in one direction, either going up or going down. So if you practiced the exercise that we just talked about before and you include the shape of the arpeggio, this is just more shapes like that on different strings on the harp. And things to remember here, exactly the same as with the exercises, all 3 fingers need to land at the same time on the harp, and thumb high, lots of space between second finger and the thumb. And then when you're practicing that piece, I recommend that you start with hands separately. So maybe if you're not so confident in the bass clef, you could start with actually reading the bass clef notes. So playing that, then that, and so on. And you may notice that the fingers, the notes that right hand and left hand playing are actually identical here, which will help you remember them. And then the next step on the first day you practice that piece will be placing, but not playing hands separately and together. So placing 3 fingers on the first 3 notes, on the next notes, and so on. That will look like that in the right hand. So just practicing landing with all 3 fingers on the same strings. And one of my students actually gave me that thought, thinking of your hand retaining the same shape, because you still skip 1 string between third finger, second, and thumb and second finger. So think of it as a cookie cutter, that your hand is a cookie cutter and you're trying to cut out the same shape from the strings to make sure that you're landing on the right notes. And then practicing that hands together, so landing right hand, left hand, then you can actually land with both hands together, and then just move them together. That will teach your fingers the shapes without being yet too concerned with actually playing the notes. And then on the next day you can move to playing them together, but try to always move them as soon as you can to land on the next chord. And even before you start playing the other hand, try to already move to the next chord. And of course keep it quite slow. And then between the second and third line there is this slightly tricky moment where left hand plays that chord and has to start playing straight away the next chord. So allow plenty of time, and the key is to just teach your left hand to move between those 2 chords very well. So just practice every now and then doing that. Your thumb is aiming for color strings, which will also help. And then 2 more days of practicing that piece, hands separately and together. You can of course play it for longer if you really like it. When you manage to get it a bit more flowing, it's actually a really nice piece and can be a show-off piece even after the first few weeks of showing, of playing the harp. Then on the next few days, if you have enough of that piece, if you learned it really quickly, I've included in the PDF the list of similar pieces, which also includes 3 fingers moving in one direction, either up or down. And practicing all those pieces will help you to practice that skill of landing exactly at the same time with all 3 fingers, keeping space, and so on. And then on the day, let me see what day actually that was. I think it was day 4 that you start playing another piece, and that piece is from the First Harp Book, the same one where the exercises are. It's called Sur le Pont d'Avignon, and it's a French folk song, and I will play it to you first so you can hear what it's like and have a bit of an impression of what is happening there. According to French people, I think that piece should be played a bit faster because it's da-da-dum, da-da-dum, and so on. But for the purpose of playing the harp, we will keep it at a slow speed, because here you also get lots of repeated notes, which on harp are not the easiest thing to be played fast. So let's keep it as a nice slow speed. The indication of the tempo says gracefully, so not too fast when playing the harp. And with that piece, let me check again on that on the practice plan. I hope this is the right one. So that's the one from the previous week. So the bars where the most complicated things happen when it comes to 3-finger placing is bars 3 and 4, and I recommend that you start practicing your right hand only from that bar, because that's the right hand which gets something which is quite new here, playing 3 fingers in a row and then coming back to play 3rd finger one more time. And there are rules how we should do this kind of figure on the harp. That rule is called directional placing, or golden rule of placing, and it says that only fingers that go in the same direction should go together. So if the first 3 notes go up, that's fine, they can all land on the strings at the same time. Then we play 3rd, we play 2nd, And on thumb will be where we're changing the direction. So here already we can put that third finger on, then play the thumb, because now we're changing the move to go down. Then third finger, we don't need that finger anymore, so we can come off the strings after playing the F with the third finger. And same in bar number 4, we start with 3 fingers on. After playing second finger, we place the third, play the thumb, play the third finger. Do it quite slowly so you can still think of placing as a separate movement. So you're going 3, 2, place, thumb, 3, and again place all 3, play 3, play 2, place 3, play thumb, play 3. So you don't compromise the rhythm too much by taking more time to think what are you doing with placing and so on. And in that bar you can also play your left hand with on its own. Left hand has a bit easier tasks because it just plays 3 notes and then doesn't come back, which makes it sometimes a bit tricky for the right hand to remember that the right hand is not coming off. So when you play that hands together, go 3, 2, take a moment to think, place the third finger, play thumb of the left hand, play thumb of the right hand while holding on to the third, and then play third finger of the right hand. After you're quite confident with that, you can move on to playing bars 1 to 8 with right hand only. So playing that, then the figure that we practiced, and when you play it for the second time, something will change in bar 8. The bar 7 is the same, but here you need to think that it's not 3 fingers anymore, but just 2. Place 1 and 2. Play thumb, place it back, play second, play the thumb. So that bar 8 is quite worth practicing on its own, and if you are in the need, watch the video about the second 2-finger placing, because this is exactly what it is. You place both of them on, you play the thumb while holding on with the second, place the thumb, play second, you don't put anything back because that's the end of the line, of the grouping of the notes, play the thumb, come off. Okay, and then when you look at the practice schedule, you will see how are you moving on to putting the whole piece together. There will be also a bit of a tricky bit in the middle of the piece where you have to play your thumb and the second finger in the opposite directions. So second place, thumb place, and then thumb and second. That will be another place that you will need to practice probably quite a lot, hands separately and together. And I think I said everything that I wanted to say about this piece. Maybe just a tiny note that in the PDF you will probably see me writing down something like RH, capital letters. That's for the right hand. Just to save the space, you will probably, if you're taking lessons, you will probably see that many teachers use the shortcut LH for the left hand and RH for the right hand. Another thing which you might want to look out, especially in Sur le Pont d'Avignon, is looking where the colored strings are. The piece is in F major, which means that the key note is F, black string, and we also get quite a lot of C string, which is called dominant in that key. So especially left hand, you can see that third finger. Again, I will turn the camera a bit more so everyone can see. You can see that on the left hand, third finger starts on the black string in that crucial bar 3 to 4, and then it starts on the red string. So that's quite a good thing while you're looking at the right hand and focus on placing the third finger. You can put the left hand quite early if you're looking out for that red string. Okay, and I think that's everything for today. Let me know if you would like to hear more on the topic of placing. Of course, this is just a very brief introduction to how to play with 3 fingers. There are a lot more different figures that you can do when playing the harp. For example, this kind of movement when you're placing other fingers, and lots of other situations where you need to be quite careful which fingers go on, which fingers don't. So let me know if you would like me to hear a bit more about placing, if you are self-taught harpist or you're just starting out and this is something which you feel that you would like to have more explanation on. For next week, we will be talking about pedals. So we'll be moving to the big harp, and I was asked again. There was a request last week to speak a bit about pedal etiquette. So I will be talking about how to make your pedal changes as smooth as possible, how to start when you're moving from lever harp to pedal harp, and in general we will just try to make this topic as easy and pleasant as possible. I think many people are unnecessarily scared of moving on to pedal harp, and I think it's actually a very convenient way of changing keys and managing different harmonies around. So stay tuned next week at the same time, 11 a.m. And as usual, let me know if you have any questions. Hope to see you next week.